The following is made possible by the Arpin Group and by Renewable Now. The International Society of Sustainability Professionals presents ISSP Profiles in Excellence, where leaders in sustainability share their experience so that others may learn. In this edition, we feature Susan Burns of the Global Footprint Network.
I'm Susan Burns. I'm the CEO of Global Footprint Network. And I started my career with a degree in engineering, and I spent a bunch of years in the consulting industry and started a little company called Natural Strategies, where we worked with businesses on sustainability strategy. And then about 11 years ago, Matas Walker-Nagel and I launched Global Footprint Network. Global Footprint Network works on the topic of ecological overshoot and helps national and subnational governments really navigate in a resource-constrained world. We also work in the finance industry. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is give decision makers tools to succeed in a new era of resource constraints. It's amazing to have gotten the award. Some of the other inductees have been my longtime heroes, like Ray Anderson and Karl-Heinrich Robert. So it's a huge honor. You know, I think since we've all been working on sustainability for the last couple of decades, there's been so much innovation, an unbelievable amount of mobilization. If you compare it to 15 years ago, when it was difficult to convince companies that this mattered, now we have companies completely embracing it. We've got massive amounts of capital flowing into green bonds, a really rapid growth of renewable energy. So there's a lot of really great things going on. But one of the things I think about quite a bit, and I think we really need to innovate around, is innovating around the level of the system. So if you think about the incentives and the way the structure is set up around a corporation, for example, whenever we create more efficiency or capacity, oftentimes we just grow right into that new capacity. So in spite of all of the innovations and amazing amount of work being done, the trends are still very pervasive. We have more resource throughput into the economy than ever before. It's not even slowing down. So we've got population increases and increases in consumption, and the system around corporations is set up that way. And the same thing could be said for the finance industry. You know, the way most economists were trained, it just assumed that nature was there to be utilized. It's an input into what we want to do in terms of a capitalistic economy. And so we're really trying to get people to shift from thinking about natural capital as something to liquidate to something to think of as a source of ongoing wealth. But those habits of mind and those incentives that are set up right now really prevent the kind of shift in the economy that we really need. The same thing could be said at the national level. We've got an economy that is really dependent on growth, GDP growth, and when our economies don't expand, we end up having loss of income, loss of jobs, and a lot of human suffering. So our economic system is dependent on growth. At the same time, this growth increases the resource throughput of the economy. So that's a system that really needs to be solved, because no matter what we do inside of that, we will continue to exceed the planet's boundaries and limits. Well, I guess starting Global Footprint Network is a great accomplishment. You know, the footprint is a really useful method. It's a very sticky idea. It's something that can be applied at the personal level, the government level, the state level, the global level, the corporate level. You can do a footprint of a product. So it's got a lot of utility, but it really needed an organization to coordinate all of the research and really strengthen the footprint so it could be used to its highest good, which is to influence decision makers. So that would be one accomplishment. Well, I have to say that I think Montes Walker-Nagel and I got into, we started Global Footprint Network for really because of the ideas and the work we wanted to do in the world. And I'd say that one of the most challenging parts of it was actually running an organization. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that, that challenge is that you love the work, and then you have to learn how to be a manager. And we've both gone through a huge evolution around that, and we still are. So we need to, it's a rapid learning curve when you get a degree in engineering, and then, you need to fill the shoes of a CEO role. So. Well, I think that it's sort of a all hands on deck type of situation. So the good news is that transforming our society and economies to a sustainable one takes every kind of discipline there is. I mean, if you're interested in finance or accounting or retail or manufacturing, I mean, everything needs to be transformed. But the important thing, I think, is if you really want to have a satisfying career, at least in my mind, get clear on what's the vision and what do we need to do to transform to a world that works for everyone, and then figure out how that translates into the thing you're doing. I think I would feel disappointed, I think, in this young person, this hypothetical young person, if they weren't innovating as much as we possibly could. I mean, it's not really enough to focus on a recycling program or some kind of incremental change and call it sustainability. I don't want the profession to be, watered down that way. I think it's a huge challenge we have. There's a lot of work that has to get done. And we need everyone innovating as much as they possibly can. And it's going to be a huge challenge to get the human economy to operate within the Earth's limits. So we need everyone's brilliance. And I'd say don't hold back. Dive in. There's amazing things going on. People are really creating miracles, seems like every day now. I'd have to say there's really two people. One is Karl-Heinrich Robert, because before the natural step was introduced, to the world, and this is true, I go way back, so I know when the people in the environmental field were working in a plethora of problems, and it was all end of pipe. It was really overwhelming. We had toxins, we had ozone, we had climate change, we had, recycling, we had garbage. There was a million things people were focused on. And it really wasn't until he conceived of the natural step framework that we saw that it's one big system. And when people go from, looking at the leaves to the forest, you can never go back. And I think that was a huge contribution. You can't point to any one thing that he did, a particular forest or a particular river, but he basically upframed the whole thing, and which makes it much more likely that we're going to solve the problem. The way the whole system works is based on free energy from the sun. The Earth is a closed system, and the only reason why we have this clean water, clean air, trees and grass and food and everything that powers the economy is because of this miracle of photosynthesis. And so when you think about that, then you can design around that system. Now, the issue of fossil fuels is an interesting one because life emerged on this planet once this carbon was sequestered deep in the Earth's crust, and now we're taking it out and putting it into the system. And there's no way to get it back in at the rate that it's coming out. So that's the main problem with climate change. Yes, the oceans do absorb some, and cropland and the land absorbs some carbon, but the balance is way off, and that's just basically because we've kind of reversed the process of evolution, of the Earth's evolution. So it's not to say that we can't stabilize the climate, because I think we can. But it's just like these are, if we understand these principles of how nature works, then we can design, using nature. So I think that's, a really huge contribution that he gave to the profession.
Visit sustainabilityprofessional.org for more about profiles in sustainability excellence and other exciting programs from ISSP, the world's leading professional association of sustainability practitioners.